All right, good afternoon or evening or morning, depending on when you are tuning in, because this is being recorded. We are so excited to present a continuation of our workshops for the Oklahoma City Minority Enterprise Development Week 2021, where we are here to uplift, highlight, celebrate, and strengthen our local minority enterprise ecosystem here in Oklahoma City. This week has already been so jam-packed. We were able to kick off the week with an incredible award ceremony, had a great networking event, and again, other workshops. But we are so excited to introduce today's workshop, which is really focused on succession planning, which is so important when you talk about not only starting a business and retaining a business, but what happens when you need to make some critical life decisions that all of us will eventually face? So I am joined by Jarrell and Jessica, who will take over in just a few minutes. I do want to encourage you all to stay tuned, stay engaged with OKC MED by following us on social media at OKC MED 2021. Also visit our website, okcmed.biz, B-I-Z, to register for our events. It's not too late to get plugged in and join us for this incredible week, as well as see who our incredible minority-owned business winners are this year. So with that, I will get started and throw it over to Jarrell and Jessica. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Mariana.
Yes, thank you. Thank everybody who's hopping on and spending their lunch with us today. As Mariana said, my name is Jarrell. I'm here with Mass Mutual and my partner, Jessica. And the presentation is beginning with the end in mind. Right? Your succession planning should start now. And so we're just going to be going over some simple steps, some concepts you should be considering when it comes to exiting your business, right? And so you'll realize a common theme as we go through this presentation, which is don't procrastinate, right? Don't wait. You have to get started on thinking about these things early to make sure that things play out the way that you want them to play out. And when we're talking about succession planning, specifically in the minority community, that concept of generational wealth is really big, right? We understand just in the minority community that there's a gap there. There's been a gap when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to income, when it comes to net worth, when it comes to real estate ownership. There's a gap there. And there's a lot of reasons why that gap is there. There's a lot of things that need to happen in order to close it. But ultimately, just you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, the thing that you can do personally to protect yourself, your business, is planning, right? And so in order to do your part to help create generational wealth, even if it's in your small pocket of the community, is proactively planning to make sure that all the time that you're putting into this business, right? Your time, your energy, all your efforts, your income, your personal goals, your retirement plan, a lot of times is tied to this business. So this is all about thinking about how do I make sure that all this effort doesn't go to waste when I finally decide to leave, either voluntarily leave or involuntarily. Right? So important for you all to note that we are not accountants, nor are we attorneys. And so when you're talking about succession planning, there's a lot of pieces of it that are either, there's a legal aspect or there's a tax aspect. Right. And when it comes to those types of things, we typically will consult with your CPA, your attorney, or we'll refer you to a CPA or attorney to make sure that holistically your succession plan is properly structured. And so why do businesses fail after the first generation? And we're going to talk a lot about this. We see this all the time in our community. And just as you can see on the slide, 30%, right, survive to the second generation, 12% to the third, right, and only 3% make it to fourth generation. So a large majority, right, you see 70% of businesses fail after the first generation. Right? So a large majority of these businesses that I stated earlier, we're putting so much of our time into, are failing right after the first person decides to hang it up. So we're just going to talk about why that is.
Thank you. So few business owners have put any plans in place to ensure a transition of their business for, when that time comes. And this includes planning for both a voluntary exit, such as retirement, or an involuntary exit, such as a death or a disability. And only about half of business owners have any type of written succession plan in place, and that includes typically a buy-sell agreement. We'll definitely discuss the differences between the two and why they are both equally important as well.
And so common excuses for why business owners aren't doing a better job of putting these plans in place typically comes down to three things, which are need, time, or money. Right? People don't think they need it, or they don't think they need it right now. They don't feel like they have the money to pay for what it costs to make these things happen, or very, very commonly, business owners don't feel like they have the time because they're very, very busy on the day-to-day of the business. So I don't feel like I need to think about these issues yet. Very common, and this is in personal planning or for business planning, people typically feel like they have time to prepare for whatever it is coming in the future. But a lot of things we don't get to choose. Right? So for example, disability. Right, 1 in 4 people are disabled at some point before retirement age. Right, too hurt or sick to work, can't get up and do their day-to-day functions. Passing away early, right? Things that you don't always have control of, right? And so people say, I don't have time, I don't feel like thinking about this yet, or I don't feel like thinking about this right now. You're putting it off and you're assuming the risk that you'll have time to make it right later, right? And we don't always get there. I'm too busy with the day-to-day management of the business. A whole lot of business owners spend a lot of time working in their business, but not on their business, right? And so really, really difficult to do, especially for small business owners. You're trying to keep the lights on, you're trying to make sure everything is functioning right. Typically the business owner has multiple jobs. They're doing the work for 3 or 4 or 5 different people. So it's hard to take that time, but really, really pivotal to make sure that you spend just a little bit of time, a couple hours, a day, a week. You have to take it out and say, how do I make sure that I'm structuring this business the right way, right? I don't have any extra money to spend on addressing these issues. A lot of people don't know what it costs to fix the issues, and instead of finding out, they just kind of put their head in the sand, right? They don't want to have to pay an advisor or an attorney or an accountant, whatever it is they think it's going to cost. I don't know where I can go to get help, or it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with families and business partners, especially when we're talking about death, when we're talking about disability, even when we're talking about transferring a business. Maybe you and your business partner aren't on the same page. Maybe you and your family don't want to think about you passing away early. Whatever it is, the reason is we can't afford to wait. So we take all of these in stride and we address it.
Thank you, Jerome. So this slide does a really good illustration of different business planning opportunities that business owners have. So if, like Jerome mentioned, it's critical that we ensure that we do implement a plan early on. And even though we have concrete plans in place today, business owners say that they do recognize that the importance of planning, with 80% saying that a successful exit will result from planning and action items to implement. And as you can see, owners have begun to take some necessary steps towards building a sound plan. But when it comes to putting it in writing and actually implementing the actions, that's typically where their efforts kind of exhaust. So our intention here is to really implement some of those actions and ideas and strategies that we're thinking today and actually implement them into a future plan.
So let's just look at the definition of succession planning, the proper definition, which is here, right? It's the process of developing a written plan for the day a business owner decides or is forced to step down from their leadership or ownership role in the business due to a voluntary or involuntary departure. So you see there's a lot of pieces there. Written plan. A lot of people have plans in their head. They have some idea of what they want to happen, and they have absolutely none of it in writing. It's automatically not a good plan, right? A business owner deciding when they want to leave or is forced, right? That goes back to that conversation about voluntary or involuntary departures. You have death, you have disability. There are other factors that come into play where sometimes you have to step down from the business before you intended to, right? And then understand that difference between leadership or ownership roles in a business. There are very, very key employees to a business who aren't always the actual owners, right? And so part of developing a succession plan is identifying who are going to be the owners, but also what about top management? What about people that still need to be in place to make sure this is a smooth transition? So just kind of looking at all of these.
Yeah, so in any successions plan, we definitely have to think of some of the main principles and address some of those things. So that includes the who, the what, the where, the whys, and the hows. And any professional advisor is going to provide you a detailed guidance on setting up a succession plan. But we definitely just want to point out some of the customized and some of the points that you want to make sure that you get addressed in your succession plan. And some of those things would be your goals. So you definitely want to identify how you want to get out of the business when you retire or when that exit time comes. You want to also identify your successors or successor. So who will be taking over for you? And you also want to outline a plan to ensure that they are properly prepared. We also want to identify the ownership. So if the company will have multiple owners in the future, specify their ownership. You also want to specify their roles and percentages. So roles and percentages and ownerships could all look differently. The next thing you want to identify is management. So define steps needed to keep vital non-owner management in place, so they stay on board throughout the transition and then throughout the future of the business. We want to identify the transfer. So we want to determine, when and how the transition will take place and what needs to happen leading up until that time. And then lastly, we want to identify finances. So that's where is the funding going to come from? How am I going to buy you out? We need to calculate taxes. When will they be due? How will they be due? And then how will this affect, my personal estate and my personal finances? Of course, everything you want to make sure that you get it documented and communicated to all parties who may be impacted in the succession plan. And that typically includes family members, key employees, trusted advisors, anything around those lines.
So there are a few golden rules to keep in mind when it comes to succession planning. And I'm going to read through a few of these just to make sure you really get the details. So first, knowing the options for exiting your business, right? Including all the pros and the cons, right? You might have a really strong desire to transition the business to a family member, but before settling on that course of action, take a look at all of your available exit strategies so you can make a truly informed decision, right? A second, knowing the true value of your business and having that in writing, right? And so Warren Buffett actually says business valuation is at the heart of investing and risk management, and without it, you are blind. So the foundation of any good succession plan or retirement plan or estate plan, if you're an entrepreneur, is making sure that you have a true, actual business valuation. You can't do any of these properly if you don't know what your business is worth. Right? Third, selecting and preparing the right successor and making sure everyone is aware of who that person is. I've worked with businesses where one person thought they were inheriting the business and it was not them. And that was never clearly communicated from the owner. And so then you have this big dispute within the place of employment, and that can cause a big issue, especially if that person who thought they were inheriting the business is a key employee that really needs to remain. So creating a documented succession plan, making sure you have the right people in place to continue running the business when you're gone, and making sure that it's clearly communicated to both the person or people who will be taking over and the people who are not. Right? Putting it in writing and making sure everything is funded properly. And then finally, which is really, really important, and this goes back again to what I was saying earlier about for business or personal, the business or personal side of a plan, reviewing your plan at least every 3 years and making sure you update it. There's a lot of people that have created a plan, even it might be written, it might have been good, but they created it in 1998, right? And now we're a couple of decades later and they haven't updated it since. So your life has probably changed, right? People in your business have changed, your family situation's probably changed. So you create a plan, but it has to be reviewed on a regular basis.
So we're going to review all the exit options that are available, but we do want to point out that one of the main reasons that most business owners don't ever have or implement an exit plan is because they don't understand the options or the exit plan options that exist. So Mass Mutual did a 2018 study, and that's when we confirmed that only 10% of businesses ever do have an exit plan. So either by design or default, we know that it's going to happen. So whether you're going to retire soon, or you have a disability, or you have an unexpected death, we know that we have to have a plan in place and strategies for the future. So again, a lot of these reasons why the business owners don't have them is again because they don't understand their options. And we're getting ready to review those over the next slides.
And so there are 6 ways that you can exit a business. Each one has its own advantages and disadvantages, which we'll go through. But the 6 ways you can exit a business. So private equity, right, going public, employee stock ownership plans, gifting to a family member, selling to an outside buyer, an inside buyout from somebody, that's inside your company already, or liquidating.
Okay, so private equity options. So the private equity recapitalization, it's basically for companies that intend to go public, and that's selling a majority of the interest in the business to a venture capital firm. And this basically brings, immediate wealth to business owners, but there are often strings attached with this option. The founder is basically no longer the boss, but is now an employee. And then also there's a lot of business ownership perks that they're going to have to be relinquished if we choose this exit option.
Employee stock ownership plans, right? An employee stock ownership plan, they're very commonly called ESOPs. It's just a qualified defined contribution employee benefit plan, right? And main purpose of it is so that employees can invest into the business or align their values with the business. So essentially the employer is offering stock of the company to the employees, and the employees are slowly buying more shares in the company over time. So the employees are a little more incentivized to do good work, because if the company continues to do well, right, then their shares will go up. And so it's better for everyone. Employee stock ownership plans can be really great for you tax-wise as a business owner. Big issue with these plans are they're just pretty expensive and complicated to get set up. And a lot of businesses in the US don't qualify. And so the last 2 options that we just talked about, which were private equity, which is basically selling your company and letting it go public, or an employee stock ownership plan. These are typically going to be for much larger companies that have have a lot more employees and probably bringing in a lot more revenue. And these next few that we go through will probably be a little more applicable to a lot of the smaller business owners in our community.
So our next one is gift to a family member. And so the gifting strategy is basically you're reducing the ownership by transferring interest to a family member. And that involves gifting away business shares. And what this does is it basically, it creates a family legacy. So you're keeping the business in the family, but it is a non-cash transfer. So what that means is that going forward, as you say, you're exiting due to retirement, you would be living off of your savings or retirement or other assets that you have built up to this point. And then going forward, you would be receiving some sort of, dividend from the shares that you are, part of the plan.
So sell to an outside buyer, and this happens about 20% of the time. So it's a common solution that business owners at least think about. As far as the pros, usually you can get a lot of money up front, right? Somebody comes in that's a buyer business, they'll give you all the cash for it up front, right? Negatives can be a huge tax burden. If you're fortunate enough to sell your business for a lot of money, the IRS is also going to take a whole lot of money at that point of sale, and so can be a big tax burden when the sale happens. Also, there's the issue of when you're talking about selling to an outside buyer, you're assuming that person is actually going to buy the company. If you have a company where you provide some product or service that maybe other people would want to know how you're doing it so they can go and do it better or do it elsewhere, it's possible that you could start to share information about your business that other people would take, and then they wouldn't buy your business and then they'd go elsewhere and implement it. So you kind of have that risk associated with it. But if you're really interested in selling to an outside buyer, you're just focusing on the key value drivers for business, which are loyal employees, product differentiation, repeat customers, things that are going to attract investors to the business.
So our next exit is a management inside buyout. And in a management inside buyout, so the buyer is often a key employee of the company and knows how to run the business and is someone who is trusted, which is a good thing. However, what's bad is typically these type of individuals don't have the cash up front or the capital to go ahead and invest in this. And that typically leads them to having to borrow money. And now it means that, your retirement is now dependent on how well this person runs the business in the future. The downside occurs that when a good employee, does make a good entrepreneur, the owners must take control back, the employee does not make a good entrepreneur. The owners are now risking having to take back ownership of the company. And now it's a struggling business.
And then finally, we have liquidation. And so liquidation happens about 40% of the time when it comes to businesses, and only about 12% of business owners say that this is their preferred exit strategy. The reason that occurs is typically just a big lack of planning. And so if you look at these questions here, if you can answer yes to them, it's a good possibility that if something were to occur in your business, if you suddenly couldn't work anymore, if you couldn't work today, right, your business would be a prime candidate for having to do a forced liquidation. So thinking about, would you have a spouse or child who would own or control your stock in the company? Would they be liable for your debts, right? Do they lack experience, either trade-wise or business savvy to run the business? Would sales fall in the short term? Would profits decline? Would key employees leave? And would clients, current customers, think about leaving, right? If you thought about, if I leave the business right now today, and you read those questions and you feel like it's mostly yeses, great chance that liquidation would have to be your business strategy, your business exit strategy, even if that's not what you prefer.
So of course, our main point is we do want to stress the importance of knowing all of your available exit options. We come to find out that a lot of business owners believe that when it comes to exit, they can just put a for sale sign on their business and, somebody's going to come and immediately make offers. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality. So we definitely, we want to know that, remember that a business that's not ready to sell is not ready to transition. So we want to focus on being a value accelerator, and that's a business who is focused on the two drivers of the value of the business. So we want to focus on the drivers that will help ensure you can exit your business on your terms when your time comes.
So as we discussed earlier, knowing what your business is worth is critical for proper business planning. And about 7 in 10 business owners frequently or often think about what their business is worth. And about 6 in 10 say they've had a business valuation done in the past 3 years. The big issue with that is a whole lot of those people who claim to have business valuations have done the business valuations themselves. And so talking about some issues with that, I'll read through this here. A proper business valuation is not a rule of thumb or a figure agreed to with a handshake. It's thoughtfully crafted by a credentialed appraiser after thorough research and is documented in writing. Having an accurate business valuation can help eliminate conflict between a buyer and a seller when an owner wants to transition the business, right? Help business owners better estimate their retirement nest egg, or help prevent potential estate tax issues. And so the biggest issue that comes with business valuations done by yourself is that a lot of business owners, about 59% or so, they have their emotions tied to their business, right? It's their business, it's their baby, they've been working on it. There's a lot of overvaluations that occur. People feel like their business should be worth more than it is. And sometimes it's an undervaluation, but really important for you as an owner to get a credentialed appraiser to make sure that you get a real estimate of what your business is worth.
So more related on business valuation, we definitely noticed that there's a big disconnect between the business owner wants a valuation and when the business owner needs a valuation. So there's several different milestones throughout the life of the business that one, as a business owner should consider obtaining a valuation. And some of those milestones may include, adding more than one shareholder. So when you're adding more shareholders to the business, you want to make sure that everything is being distributed appropriately and fairly and then to your terms. Another milestone would be that we're approaching retirement. So if we're approaching retirement, we're approaching activating our exit strategy plan, and we want to get an updated figure. So like Jarrell mentioned, you may have valuation from the past, from 15 years ago, but it's now 15 years ahead, and we need to get a more recent updated valuation on your business. Another time is just, you've approached retirement. So you're at retirement and you just want to make sure that you're still standing at the current valuation that you expected. And then a fourth reason why you would want to get a new valuation is just basically for estate planning. Politicians come and go, but taxes are always constant. So unless you want the Internal Revenue Service to value your business for you at the time of death or an event like that, it's important for you to know your value so that you can adequately prepare for any potential estate tax burden that may exist. And then additionally, if you have children involved in the business and children are not in the business, having an adequate, accurate valuation will help equalize the distribution of your estate so that you are both fair and equitable to all children.
And so this little cartoon kind of illustrates what a whole lot of entrepreneurs go through. They're owners and they assume that their children are going to be the correct successor. And there's a whole lot of children who don't have the same passion or the same interest or not going to have the same dedication to something that you built. So your child is not automatically going to be a great successor for the business.
Correct. So with that, basically, you can have a well-drafted and properly funded succession plan, but if you haven't chosen the right individual to take over the business, when you do exit, then your succession plan may not work as intended.
So just talking about some steps to help you prepare the right successor, right? And I'll read through a couple of these. Establishing clear guidelines to become the leader, right? So establishing an employment policy that includes guidelines for family member involvement in the business and how the next leader will be selected is important, right? How the next leader of the business will be selected. Those guidelines should cover hiring. It should cover compensation and benefits. It should cover supervision, disciplinary and performance standard policies. All right, this is important for the clarity for the successors. Second, determining the future leadership needs of the business. So this is the backdrop against which the selection of a successor has to be made. All right, the best way to do this is through an ongoing, long-term strategic business planning process that identifies where the business is going over the next 5 to 10 years and what will be required from leadership to get there. All right. We have developing a successor development plan, right? Which is it's a written career path for the successor to follow. It begins with an assessment of your proposed successor's current skills and interests and defines what additional experience, education, training, and other professional development that they might need. This plan is based on the future needs of the business, and it kind of identifies points of progression from one level to the next. Coordinating the succession plan and successor development with family members and key managers, right? So having them participate as appropriate in structuring the plans and make sure they fully understand the impacts on their part of the transition process. And to achieve that, they must understand kind of the rigorous process that you're going through to create this transition, and they kind of have to be bought in, all right? Also, encouraging utilizing a mentor, right? And so for encouraging utilizing a mentor, it's kind of you helping invest in your successor early. So maybe that's a business coach or some type of outside advisor, but making sure that you're spending the time investing in them before they become the successor or before they become the owner of the business, right? And so also just spending time working outside of the business, which is not just focusing on your day-to-day, but really spending time as the owner and not an employee of the business.
So more on when it comes to, selecting and preparing the right successor, really when it comes to the process of choosing a successor, it should be more about, who can run the business successfully and do an amazing job and not more of a personal bias. So we have an example of a small business owner who was a hardware store and he wanted to keep the business in the family. But in his words, he only had 4 daughters. So his plan was to pass management and eventually ownership in the business to the 2 son-in-laws. After years of running the business, the daughters began to get concerned about the store and how it was being run, and money was being wasted, product was being stolen, and employees were being mismanaged. In addition, one of the son-in-laws told the family that when the dad passed away, he was going to take full ownership of the business and basically cut the daughters out. So the daughters who were working in the business with the son-in-laws brought these concerns to their father. And after doing some research, he realized that the business was being poorly managed and took all of the owner shares away from the son-in-law and reallocated them to 3 of his 4 daughters. So unfortunately, the daughter of one of the son-in-laws who caused the issues is basically estranged from the family. But the issues that occurred within the business took such a toll on the family that it did cause a serious, rift among the daughters and their parents. And it was all because dad just did not properly prepare and select the right successor. So now the business is now under the control of the daughters, and it is strong as ever. But the short-term ramifications of not properly choosing the right successor, did create long-term repercussions for the entire family. And those could have been easily avoided by simply dad making the right decision and the exit plan from the start. So we just want you to always remember to, you can never take family out of the business, and decisions should be made in both the best interest of the business and the family.
Rule number 4, putting it in writing. And this is just a big issue when it comes to any type of planning, is people have ideas in their head and none of it is ever on paper. And we talked about that a few times throughout the presentation. So just writing that vision and making it plain. So a buy-sell agreement, a really, really critical piece to your business. All right, it's a legally binding agreement that requires one party to sell and another party to buy a particular ownership interest in a business in the event of a triggering event, right, such as a death or disability of the owner. Without a written buy-sell agreement in place, any of those triggering events could cause a very significant turmoil amongst ownership and have a really adverse effect on the continuity of a business. So a buy-sell agreement, a good, well-drafted buy-sell agreement is going to include how much one business owner will pay the others, estate or heirs, for their share in the business. It'll include the method of business valuation that's going to be used, the source of funding for the buyout, which is extremely important. It doesn't do you a whole lot of good to have a written plan for how money is going to be transferred and there's no money there for the transfer. Who's eligible for payment, right? And what that definition of disability is. And that definition of disability is probably going to differ depending on what industry you're in.
So more about buy-sell agreements. So if they're not executed properly, there can be definitely many common issues that can arise with buy-sell agreements for the owners, their families. And assuming that the buy-sell agreement is the linchpin of a well-designed succession plan, the following red flags must be addressed to ensure that the agreement does relieve the pain points experienced by the business owners as a transition in and out of the business. So depending upon the entity type of the business, whether it's a C corporation, an S corporation, or LLC, attention must be paid to the type of buy-sell agreement that is used. For example, an entity purchase arrangements can be problematic for a C corporation. They can create step up in basis issues, which can lead to significant taxable events later. Also, life insurance is used to fund the agreement. The death benefit is paid to the company, may be used to alternate the minimum tax, which is unique to the C corporations. This underscores the importance of leveraging a team of experts to draft, execute, and then periodically review your buy-sell agreement. And there are 2 different ways to structure your buy-sell agreement. So, there are different ways to structure the buy-sell agreement, and that could be a cross purchase, a entity purchase, or a one-way, and those are just a few options. And the number of owners in a business will influence the buy-sell structure agreement. We just want to make sure that it's appropriate for your business. Your buy-sell agreement may account for, the 5 Ds, like we like to call them, and that's death, disability, a divorce, a departure, whether that's voluntary or involuntary, and other disqualifications, which pertains to malfeasance that would require an individual to be removed from an ownership position. Lastly, many buy-sell agreements don't define disability, meaning the definition of what is considered disabled is left up to the business owners themselves. So you can customize your buy-sell agreements. Another important question to address in the buy-sell agreement is exactly who will determine if the person is disabled or incompetent. By funding a buy-sell agreement with disability buyout insurance, you allow the insurance company to define what is considered disabled.
And so just a little, another kind of example to guys understand. And so she talked about the structure of a buy-sell agreement. Basically, if you have two business owners, it's a cross purchase, which is I'm owner A, I'm going to buy life insurance on owner B, and vice versa. If owner A dies, then that life insurance money goes to owner B's family, right, or to owner B's estate. If there's multiple owners, you got 4, 5, 6 owners in a business, it's an entity buy-sell agreement, which just means the company owns the life insurance and pays it out to whichever owner dies. So if you don't remember anything else about buy-sells, just remember that there are 2 pieces, right, which are the contract, and then there's how the buy-sell is funded, right? It needs to be in writing what's going to happen, and then we need to know where the money's coming from to make sure that it actually happens. So when I'm looking at buy-sell agreements between 2 owners or multiple owners, it's those 2 things I'm looking at. So an example of kind of a buy-sell gone wrong, I'll read this here. I have owner A and I have owner B, right? And they're 50% owners in a cleaning business. And so they discussed entering into a buy-sell agreement and purchased the life insurance policies to fund the agreement, but they never executed the written buy-sell. Each owner paid the premiums and were the beneficiary for the other, right? As I was talking about with the cross purchase, I'm the owner, Jessica's is owner B, we just are buying life insurance on each other. But so owner A, owner B dies, right? And the life insurance death benefit is paid out to owner A. Owner A then decides to refuse to pay the life insurance proceeds to owner B's family. If you take that to court, the court is going to decide that owner A can do whatever they want with the money because it wasn't in writing that they couldn't do what they want with the money, right? And so you have to have both pieces to the buy-sell agreement. Once again, I need it in writing, I need the contract, but then also I need to know how it's going to be funded.
Yeah, so any good agreement, buy-sell agreement, we want to make sure that we do review it periodically. Typically, we advise to review it at least every 3 years, or any time that there is a change in family relationships, such as a divorce, or children are entering or leaving the house, changes in the ownership structure, and changes in the value of the business are also some of the common reasons why you would want to update your agreements. In addition, the funding mechanism for the agreements is just as critical. And the research tells us that many agreements are underfunded or just not funded at all. Funding buy-sell agreements with insurance products, specifically, the life insurance and disability buyout insurance, is often the most effective method. This is generally a tax-free death benefit provided by life insurance, which makes it possible for the remaining owners to purchase the business interests of the departure's owners. Also, when a business owner funds a buy-sell agreement with disability buyout insurance, it can also help provide the funds necessary to facilitate the orderly structure of a transfer or to basically, bring in additional staff that can help with some of the duties that, that the business owner had left now due to his exit. And then there is, of course, a cost. Premium dollars are an outlay of the, with the delay, it's just premium dollars based on the, buy-sell agreement or the insurance strategy that you want to implement. But this does offset the peace of mind that attained by all the parties with the buy-sell agreement, and is fully and properly funded. So knowing that you have those strategies implemented does provide that peace of mind in case something ever does happen in the business.
And lastly, on reviewing, it's a team effort, but a lot of business owners don't treat it as such. And so when most business owners are coming up with their overall succession planning, they're typically talking to either just their partner, other business owners they know, and a lot of time it's family members, right? Brothers, spouses, children, those are the only people involved in that succession plan. But a good succession plan, you're going to need to speak to employees. You're going to need to speak to your family. You're going to need to speak to an attorney. You're going to need to speak to an accountant. You're going to want to talk to a financial advisor. There's a lot of pieces to a good, well thought out financial plan for your succession that involves multiple people who do different things. And so if you really are serious about working on your succession planning, you have to spend the time and the resources to make sure that you can have all these people on your team. And as I was saying earlier, if we spend so much of our time and money that goes into our business, you would think that you would be able to take just a little bit of time or take a little bit of your resource and use it to make sure that your business can be long lasting, well after you're gone.
So we really just want to recap, some of the golden rules of succession planning. And that's basically, just educating yourself, knowing all the options that exist out there for exiting a business, the importance of understanding why it's important to know the value of your business and obtaining formal evaluations, selecting and preparing the right successor. So as we mentioned, making sure that it's not just a family, but it's also somebody that's going to be able to, run the business successfully and does understand it and is a trusted, individual. Put it in writing, as we said, so contracts, make it official. We want to make sure that we get it documented. And then again, review your plan at least every 3 years. So we have one in place, or anytime you have, again, if you have a change in your lifestyle with your family, you have a change in the business, then all those events would require an update in your plan, but at least every 3 years.
And so on the screen, this is our contact information, just in case anybody does want to reach out to us with any specific questions. And also, we're going to kick it back to Mariana, and if there are any questions for us now, I believe we have a few minutes and we can answer those.
Absolutely. What great information that you all provided to us today. Know your options for exiting, know your worth, have a leadership plan, and start now, review often. I know I had a couple of questions, and then we'll see if we have some questions from the audience. How can you determine if your business is, how do you determine if your business is sellable?
So I think the first part is getting an actual business valuation, right? You have to figure out how much your business is worth. There's a whole lot of people that, as we kind of talked about earlier, they think their business is worth more than it is, or maybe they're not familiar enough with their competition to really understand kind of where their business falls. So I think the first step, if you're at all thinking about selling your business, is I need to get a business valuation. I need to know, is this business worth $10,000 and I thought it was worth 100? Right, this business worth $500,000. I can start to have a conversation about selling to somebody if I've had a true business valuation, because then it's easy for me to say, oh, okay, well, I had professionals look at this and I know my business is worth $250,000, right? Now I feel a lot more comfortable going and having those conversations having those conversations with investors or potential buyers.
Absolutely. And, you know, having worked with like learning from you all from the Oklahoma Small Business Development Centers around, you know, it really is specific to your business, where your business is located, your profitability, your industry, years of experience, so many different things. So you're exactly right. Seek counsel, legal, financial, and much, much more. Can you again reiterate, how does the right exit strategy help an owner achieve a healthy retirement?
Right. So when it comes to achieving a healthy retirement, one, an owner has to determine what a healthy retirement looks like for them. A lot of people have different definitions of retirement. Some people are literally want to give the business away and they don't want anything to do with it. All right, they want to be done at 60 or 65 and they want to go off into the sunset. All right, some people, they love what they do so much, they want to be around to help consult, right? Some people want to take proceeds and go off and start another business or get into real estate investing. So there's a lot of different areas that you can go when you're talking about retirement, right? When I think about retirement, I just think about financial independence. So what's that age for me where if I'm still working, it's because I want to, not because I have to, right? So you have to define what that means to you. After you define what that means, a proper exit strategy is really important because it's going to determine the type of money or control in the business that you have once you leave, right? If you want to be done with the business and you have a different business venture you want to go on, maybe a good exit strategy for you is just selling the business and getting a big chunk of money, right? If you want to be involved in the business or the business is in a part of the community that you love and you want to see it continue on in the way that you started it, then maybe an exit strategy that involves you getting a big chunk of money and leaving is not at all healthy for you. So you have to determine what retirement looks like for you first, and then which of those 6 exit strategies you choose is going to help you a lot determine which route you need to go.
So knowing your options, and again, seeking proper counsel, which to your point that you all made earlier, and I should have led with this, you know, there's so many affordable resources in the community, whether you're just getting started, have a well-established business, wherever your business and personal life is in that life cycle, there are affordable, accessible resources that are available. So don't be afraid that it may be too expensive, that it's not for you. These are decisions that every entrepreneur and small business owner is going to have to make. So it's best that you're prepared. I'm thankful for you all's partnership, being one of our trusted consultants through our Building Businesses Back Better through Progress OKC. And I would encourage business owners, if you are interested in some business advisement services that are no to low cost, visit our website, progressokc.org. But again, start now, plan early so you can be successful. And with that, please contact them if you have any direct questions. I appreciate you all's time and attention and you all lending your time and expertise today. And yes, so we will have materials available following this presentation. This presentation is on Facebook and will also be on YouTube. And for anyone that's registered, we will email you some materials. So thank you all so much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.